Hey, I hope you guys are doing good today. We are going to be watching Skinwalkers and the Wendigo and what are the differences because this video had popped up for me and I realized that I have absolutely no clue really as to the big differences between them. So I thought this would be kind of an interesting one to do. Kind of keeping with our little bit of a cryptid vibe here for October. So um I'm excited for this one. I'm excited to learn the differences. If you do get a chance, I'd appreciate if you can leave a like and subscribe. It helps me out a bunch, and I will have the Laura Lodge's video linked in my description below, so be sure to go and give them a like and subscribe. He does an amazing job. I watch a lot of his videos, so highly recommend him. He's great. But all right, let's see what these differences are.
It's time to skinwalk your way into the woods and hunt yourself some Wendussy. I'm Aiden Mattis, and welcome back to the Lore Lodge.
When does he? Oh my goodness. That's a good one. That was a good one. Oh my gosh.
One of the most common questions we get asked on this channel and over on my TikTok channel is what is the difference between a skinwalker and a Wendigo? And I can understand the confusion because when I first started making content, I did not realize how different the two things were. And that is on 2021, Aiden. Why were you such a fool? What's wrong with you? Why didn't you get better? Why are we still sad?
Top 10 questions
Oh
doctors
my
still
gosh.
trying to find an answer for.
You need to keep that one in there. Cut immediately to that. All jokes aside, there are significant differences between the two, and it comes down to a lot more than just different versions of the same thing. What you're talking about is two.
I thought they were kind of more well, aren't skinwalkers more like Native American based? Um like which kind of the Wendigo is more like a cannibalistic monster, I think, right? And then I think they're like in different regions, maybe, or maybe they are found all over, like they can, kind of cross pollinate. I don't know, but that's kind of really the only thing I really know. So, and maybe I'm not even right.
Very different tribal groups with different folklore, different cultural taboos, and different interests. Many people, as a result of a failing American education system, believe that Native Americans were kind of a monolithic group with different names. That they were almost like the 50 US states that all speak the same language, largely worship the same god, and share most cultural values. But
I don't think that's true though. At least like from what I mean, I don't know how much I remember from school for that, but I want to say like I think they're all like vastly different, like and I'm pretty sure like I think they are all very very different from each other from my like lack of knowledge at least.
that's really not the case. It's much more akin to what you would see in European history, where there are broad cultural groups who share
Yeah.
similarities, but at the end of the day, they're not the same thing. The Welsh are different from the Scots, are different from the Irish, are different
Hmm.
from the Germans.
Right.
So, the same has to be applied to Native American cultures. They're not a monolith, they're varied and they're very interesting.
I mean, like, because, like, okay, like the US is huge, right? So, like, depending on like how far away they were, I mean, they may not even know like another group exists. So, I guess to assume that like they all spoke the same language or did the same things seems kind of absurd to me because this is a big country and there is a lot of space here. So, if they were, all over, I could, I mean, I guess like deductive reasoning would tell you that there's no way that they'd all be on the same page.
And the two most at play in this story are the Navajo and the Algonquin, or more accurately, the Diné and the Algonquin. And
Okay.
even that's still pretty granular. I'm not a Native American historian. I'm more of a folklorist on this aspect, and I don't totally understand all the differences. There's also the Anishinaabe. There's the Southern Diné versus the Northern Diné. You get into a whole bunch of different things here. I'm also not sure I'm even pronouncing Dine right. I've heard Dine and Dane. I think it depends on North versus.
He's doing better than me. I can't pronounce anything to save my life, so you're doing better than me, sir.
I also am not sure I'm even pronouncing Dine right. I've heard Dine and Dane. I think it depends on north versus south. I'm trying. But it's important that we explain what the differences between these two groups are. Now, the Navajo, being a southern Dene group, are native today to the American Southwest and the Four Corners region, but they didn't originate there. This group of people is believed to have initially come down from Canada probably sometime around 13 or 1400. And this is in
Oh.
line with a story from the Northern Dene groups up in the Yukon Territory and the Northwest Territories who claim that there was a group called the Naha, a tribe, who lived in what is now Nahanni River Valley, which we've done a very long video on. I encourage you to watch it, who in the dead of night randomly just disappeared. And this was a warlike tribe. It was a Dene speaking tribe that would have been very familiar to the groups of the north, and that they came south. And so basically there's a story that this Naha tribe disappears, and then around 13 or 1400 the other tribes of the southwest United States start to describe this tribe called the Navajo. So Naha, Navajo.
So they like left and then just like popped up, and then people are calling them Navajo. Is that like the speculation that we're getting here? I love his channel so much because you get so much history, even though he does talk about like some conspiracy theories or like he said like folklore and stuff. You do get like some solid history from him too. Like this is what I do enjoy about his videos. And when he talks about locations and stuff, he does go into like a more historical dive for like a part like a first segment of his videos, and I think that that's important. I think it's cool. I appreciate that about him.
Start to describe this tribe called the Navajo. So Naha, Navajo, similar terms. Can't
Yeah.
speak to the etymology. But, and they're not the only tribe that may share this origin. The Apache also seem to come from the same Dene group. They speak a similar language and have a lot of similar stories. And I do feel it's important to note that relations between the United States of America and the Navajo Nation have been strained basically since the two encountered each other, but the Navajo did play a crucial role in winning the war in the Pacific during World War II. Navajo code talkers would take English words, translate them into a Navajo equivalent, which was not the same word. For example, tank became turtle, and then turtle became the Navajo word for turtle, and they would
Mm.
speak code phrases back to each other. The Japanese were completely incapable of breaking it, and it was essentially an undecipherable code unless you knew the Navajo language, as well as what each word meant.
Right. Yeah. I remember I watched a couple documentaries about this, and it's really interesting. It's pretty cool.
Language, as well as what each word meant. So you may be asking, how do the Navajo differ from Algonquin tribes like the Ojibwa? Well, a lot of it is simply territory, but they do have significant differences in their cultures. Geographically, however, the Algonquin are mostly the northeastern United States, the Atlantic seaboard, as well as most of northern and eastern Canada. Furthermore, there is an Algonquin offshoot group off in the Great Plains region, about around the Illinois area. Many of the first tribes encountered by British settlers in the region would have been Algonquin-speaking groups. And there is a difference between Anishinaabe and Algonquin, but I don't totally understand what it is, and I would appreciate if somebody explained. I tried to figure it out, but to be quite honest, I was struggling.
Okay, so I looked into it for just a second just to see like if what the big distinctions are, and since Algonquian tribes are a language family, it's not a single tribe. So it includes dozens of distinct nations. Each have their own culture, territory, and traditions. And it says Algonquian with an I refers to a language group spoken by many indigenous nations across North America, whereas Algonquin without the I is a specific tribe in Canada, part of the Algonquian language family. So we're talking about two nations that speak related languages, vary, but they are very different culturally. So I think that's like a good explanation of like understanding the context of this. That it's not like it's either you're kind of talking about a language family.
From what I understand, the two terms are sometimes synonymous, but not always. I read that it seems like Algonquin languages are derived from the original Anishinaabe language, but again, I could have that wrong. Now, what about contact between the two groups, the Dine and the Algonquin? It did happen. In fact, the name we used to use for the Dine people groups was Athabascan, which was a name given to them by the Algonquin peoples. However, it's unclear. In fact, it's probably unlikely that there were any Algonquin tribal groups that encountered specifically the Navajo. But with the tribal details out of the way, what about their description and their capabilities? Well, those also differ. For example, skinwalkers are human beings who practice dark magic, or bad medicine, as the
Mm.
shamans call it. There is variation in the beliefs here. There is the camp that would suggest that skinwalkers are capable of physically transforming and taking on the shape and characteristics and appearance of the animal that they're imitating, be that a coyote, a wolf, a mountain lion, any of it. The idea that they can physically become a supernatural apex predator does exist.
So for skinwalkers, is it just animals that they turn into, or can they turn into like other people and like do kind of like doppelganger type stuff?
Can physically become a supernatural apex predator does exist. But it's countered by the opposite side, which suggests that this is more akin to a berserker from the Scandinavian territories, that it's
Also, like, were there tribes of skinwalkers? Was it like, or if you're a skinwalker, are you like living out in the hut in the woods? You know, like kind of like, like witches type type of deal, or are you like your like village skinwalker? Like, I'm just wondering, like how this, how like where are they in society? I guess.
this is more akin to a berserker from the Scandinavian territories, that it's somebody who dons the pelts of an animal in order to magically
Mm,
gain their instincts and their survival skills and some of their attributes. Like it might make you faster, it might make you stronger, it might give you better eyesight, but that you wouldn't yourself be undergoing the transformation just wearing the pelts and possibly
okay.
also taking a cocktail of intoxicating substances and psychedelics. And of course, there are middle
That actually makes a little bit more sense, like you can put these animal pelts on and, drink some stuff and feel powerful.
so taking a cocktail of intoxicating substances and psychedelics. And of course, there are middle grounds through all of this. There are people who believe that you might transform slightly, or you might transform fully but not gain any sort of supernatural powers. There's, again, you got
Mm,
to remember that this is a very old set of stories.
right, that is true. Like there's only so much that we're gonna know for sure. Cause yeah, it seems like there's so many different variations and maybe that just kind of changed over time because this does seem like it is like this is very, very old.
Natural powers. There's, again, you got to remember that this is a very old set of stories, and different groups are going to have different beliefs about them. But what you can say for certain is that this is a ritualistic practice undertaken by some people in the Navajo tribal group. Another thing that you'll come across in researching skinwalkers is the idea of astral projection. A lot of stories that I read about the topic, and I do want to emphasize that I did not get these directly from Navajo people. These were stories I was able to find on the internet that were
There is a gentleman I did come across though. He is, I believe he is Navajo, and he has a Skinwalker story. So maybe I will watch that too because it sounds like his story is very, very interesting. He has a very nice, soothing voice as well. So maybe we will watch that too.
get these directly from Navajo people. These were stories I was able to find on the internet that were attributed to Navajo people. So again, that's the hardest thing about skinwalkers is it is really hard to get accurate information. But that said, there are stories that suggest that the skinwalkers can astral project, that they can leave their physical body and wander around the astral plane, basically, hopping into people's dreams and whatnot. There's also suggestion that they can use the astral plane, the spirit world, to go from place to place, covering less distance in their own body, but ending up across the world. And that's not limited to Navajo. That's a belief that is shared by groups like the Celts, the Norse, and certain Mediterranean tribes. I'm sure that there are also people elsewhere in the world, but the European continent is kind of my area
Mm.
of expertise. So that's what I know the most about and what I feel
That's
comfortable
fair.
speaking on. But again, I can't say that this is universal based on the research I've done, but I have come across suggestions of it. Now, what about the power and skill set of the Wendigo? Well, it's similar, but not the same. The first thing about a Wendigo that you need to understand is that whereas the Skinwalker is very deliberate in what they're doing, the Wendigo is a human who has lost control. They do not have full faculties. They are driven by an innate desire that they cannot put aside. Whereas
Where did the Wendigo's like design concept come from, or the like creature that they just like? Because like they always look like this, right? Like they're pale. They got like really long limbs, and they, I mean, they essentially just look like monsters. But I wonder, like who came up with this?
driven by an innate desire that they cannot put aside. Whereas the Skinwalker might be doing what they're doing for their own reasons, the Wendigo doesn't have that kind of control. They also supposedly undergo a permanent physical change, not one that can be taken off like a costume. The Wendigo is described by Ojibwa scholar Basil Ainge Johnston, a native Ojibwa person himself, as gaunt to the point of emaciation, its desiccated skin pulled tightly over its bones, with its bones pushing out against its skin, its complexion the ash gray of death, and its eyes pushed back deep into their sockets.
I will say this: if I ever saw one of those, I don't know. I think I'd rather see a skinwalker personally. I think I'd rather much more encounter a skinwalker. Maybe if if we're going, we are if we are doing a versus or a would you rather? I think I might go skinwalker because this Wendigo sounds like it is way scarier
The
and way more unpredictable.
ash gray of death, and its eyes pushed back deep into their sockets. He goes on to write that the Wendigo looked like a gaunt skeleton recently disinterred from the grave. What lips it had were tattered and bloody, and he adds that the Wendigo was unclean and suffering from suppuration of the flesh, giving off an eerie odor of decay and decomposition, of
Oh
death
God.
and corruption,
Oof.
which is pretty horrific when you think about it. That's a
Yeah, like you smell like death and you probably feel like that too. Like I wonder if it's like the same thing of like if you are become encounter with one, like you just, it's like your stomach drops out your ass and all you feel is dread. I would believe that. I 100% believe that.
and corruption, which is pretty horrific when you think about it. That's a gross thing to describe,
Yeah.
but it is, in my opinion, a lot scarier than the Hollywood version of the Wendigo. Antlers. So,
Wait, there's a movie about it. It's called Antlers. Hold on. I'm gonna have to look this up real quick. Many viewers were disappointed with Antlers because of its uneven storytelling, underdeveloped characters, and controversial use of an indigenous mythology. While the film had strong visuals and atmosphere, critics and audience felt it didn't fully deliver on its potential. So they Hollywooded up folklore and people got mad. Imagine that when you muck it up and instead of like, trying to be authentic or I would say at the very least just being respectful, right? The trailer promised a chilling folklore driven horror with Guillermo del Toro's signature touch, but many felt the final product lacked emotional depth and narrative cohesion. That's not great. So I can maybe see why he is not very happy with this movie. I kind of want to watch it though. The film uses Wendigo myth as a horror device, but doesn't meaningfully engage with the indigenous voices or perspectives. Critics called this out as cultural appropriation, especially since no native characters are central to the story. Ooh, I kind of feel like you'd probably want that. Like that would probably, but it would have been like a huge staple in your movie. Ooh, ooh, yeah. I can kind of see people's disappointment. Plus, like that would be like such a cool movie if you did, I guess, do it correctly and weaved in like indigenous people and stuff. Like I don't know, like you could have made this sounds like maybe like a missed opportunity. I'm still interested in seeing it though because I've never heard of it and If you have watched it, let me know and let me know your thoughts on it.
That's my opinion. In some versions of the Wendigo story, we're talking about a giant. We're talking about something that is 9, 15,
Yeah, yeah,
20 feet
yeah.
tall. But again, that's not universal. In some cases, we're describing something that's simply the size of a man that looks almost dead. Some of these legends that call it a giant even go on to say that it grows in proportion to its last meal, so that if it eats a person, it grows to add on the mass of that person, therefore keeping it perpetually hungry. Something that is universal to the Wendigo, however, is their superhuman fighting and hunting abilities. They are super fast, super strong, have reflexes far faster than yours or mine, and can really only be defeated by the greatest of warriors. And in some versions of the story, much like the Skinwalker, they can, in fact, practice mimicry and ventriloquism, making their voice sound different and sound as if it's in a location that it's not.
Mm-mm. Nope. Yeah, see, like that's the stuff that I don't like. Mm-mm. Nope. I'm good. Don't. I am. I am not a fan of that. That I feel like that too. Like, how would that not make the hair on the back of your neck stand up if you're out somewhere and you heard that, or you hear something unnatural? I guess because I feel like when you are where there's people, right? Like you have a lot of noises and stuff like that, and it's normal. But when you're like out in the forest and it's quiet and all you should be hearing is nature, and you are hearing whistling, screaming, crying, anything like that, and you know that there's like not or there isn't supposed to be anybody around. Mm-mm. No, I feel like I am good. I am good.
Ventriloquism, making their voice sound different and sound as if it's in a location that it's not. There's a common saying about the Wendigo that if it sounds near, it's far, and if it
Mm.
sounds far, it's too late. So now that you know where they're from and what they look like and can do, well, how are they created? With the Skinwalker, finding accurate information on this topic is again very, very difficult. What I've been able to ascertain is that it is something of a master and apprentice situation where there is some sort of social structure, some sort of hierarchy, and that a person does not simply become a skinwalker of their own, independent activities, that they have to be taught how this works, and that this can take
Okay.
on a number of forms. So again, what I have found here, I believe is accurate, but I could be wrong. I want to stress that. You need to understand that skinwalkers choose to be what they are. They are a skinwalker because they want to be a skinwalker. There's, of course, that community aspect I mentioned where they learn how
Okay, so you can train to be a skinwalker. Can you be born one? Like, is that a possibility?
because they want to be a skinwalker. There's, of course, that community aspect I mentioned where they learn how to do it from another older skinwalker. Some form of violent crime is required. Now, in some of
Mm.
the versions I've heard, this is as simple as they have to commit a murder. It doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter where it is, they just have to kill somebody. Then, of course, there's versions that suggest, well, they have to kill a close friend or a family member. And then some go so far as to say that not only do they have to kill somebody close to them, but they then have to eat their body. They have to commit an act of cannibalism. On
Oh my goodness. Okay, so we have quite the escalation of indoctrination here. I mean, it is extreme to say that you have to murder somebody, but like now we're going to you know, somebody you love, family member, and you gotta cook them and eat them. Oh boy.
close to them, but they then have to eat their body. They have to commit an act of cannibalism. On top of all of this, it seems likely, though I can't corroborate it for certain, that some sort of substance use is involved in this, particularly psychedelics.
Mm,
And that is not uncommon to Native American rituals. It's also
right.
not uncommon to many European pagan rituals. The Celts, as well as the Norse, primarily the Norse, would use psychedelics. This is often what you hear about with berserkers. What they would do was they would take mushrooms, get themselves really, really into like this mode, and go into battle. And that's how somebody who was very heavily under the influence of drugs managed to be a successful warrior because they were on substances that heightened their senses of awareness, their agility, and their pattern seeking. So they would perceive things at a higher rate than the people they were fighting, which may be the root of some of the Skinwalker's capabilities. It could
I think that that's a pretty good assumption or like maybe trying to figure out exactly like where the lore and powers, I guess quote unquote powers come from, you know. And like if you both were taking psychedelics and then putting animal pelts on and then, trying to kind of take in, trying to be like more animalistic in a sense, and then you looked at the person across from you and like maybe they do look like a wolf or something and may or it looks like a very wolf animal like, but then doesn't move or look exactly right. So then that probably ends up being a little terrifying.
Than the people they were fighting, which may be the root of some of the Skinwalkers' capabilities. It could be that due to the drugs they're on, they have sacrificed certain senses to improve
Mm.
others. And just to be sure I drive this point home, I am not saying anything negative about the use of psychedelics. I'm saying that, they kind of fell out of fashion after the CIA stopped trying to use them for mind control.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. I feel like nowadays, you can't hear like LSD or something like that, not think of MK Ultra. It's true. It's true.
Saying that, they kind of fell out of fashion after the CIA stopped trying to use them for mind control. So they're now being used to treat depression. In case you're wondering what I
Yeah,
mean by the
right.
CIA was using psychedelics for mind control, go ahead and take a look at our video on Charles Manson. And of course, there's the final act of becoming
Oh yeah, I did hear that theory too, that Charles Manson was part of like a MK Ultra thing. I thought that was crazy. I actually didn't even realize that until I watched that video. That is a good video. You should go watch it.
control. Go ahead and take a look at our video on Charles Manson. And of course, there's the final act of becoming the Skinwalker, transforming, shape-shifting. Now, that is done by wearing the pelt of an animal that the Skinwalker killed and skinned. So, they do that, they put it on, and then they can take on the powers, the abilities of that animal. Now, what about the Wendigo? I just gave you this very complicated story about how you become a Skinwalker.
Yeah.
You have to seek out an elder, you have to commit a violent crime, you probably have to do some
I will say that that does sound like very folklore, esque kind of um protocol, I guess, or procedure of becoming something. Because I mean, and that's like in a lot of different other scenarios of kind of more like mythical things, like there's some sort of process that you go through, like people like being witches or whatever, or um, you know, even like the really like top like religious people or cults. Cults are a very, very, very good kind of like there's things that you have to do. So this actually like kind of I can kind of see where skinwalkers have come from here, um and how that story has kind of like been probably retold millions of times, and probably there are some tweaks here and there of things that get changed, plus depending on like maybe where you are, like where your location is, like that, then your lore probably changes a little bit here and there. But obviously we have like the kind of the overall theme of it. And now I guess we're gonna go into pure chaos.
drugs. You've got to kill an animal and skin it yourself. Clearly, the Wendigo must be similar. It is not. You just have to be cold and hungry. I'm not kidding. Literally, be somewhere cold, be desperately hungry, and eat somebody. That is how you become a Wendigo, according to the folklore. Now, it's not always that simple. Certain versions of this tale do involve the Wendigo being somebody who simply is overcome with greed, not necessarily
Oh,
cannibalism, but just greed. But
yeah.
in most of the stories, it is up north in the winter.
Is this like a like a take on like Kuru? Like you because you're eating people. I mean, I know you have to like eat their brain, but like what would be stopping somebody starving from eating every piece of somebody and then maybe getting Kuru? Maybe? I don't know.
Somebody is on a hunt, they get snowed in, they starve, and they either kill or eat the deceased family member, hunting partner, whatever it may be. And as a result, they crave for the rest of their existence human flesh. It is the only thing on their mind.
Oof.
Now, in some versions, of course, the Wendigo is totally consumed by this, but not in all of them. And of course, we do have to discuss the physical changes. Now, in some versions, what you get is that there is a distinct, serious physical transformation. that you get
Okay.
taller, that your limbs grow longer, that you get
Right,
claws on
right,
your
right, right.
hands, things like that. In others, it's really just that you take on the appearance of a starving man with frostbite. So, again, these are very old stories from cultures that spread out across the North American continent. There's going to be variation.
Yeah.
But what about motivations? Skinwalkers are doing it for the greed. They're doing it for the self-interest. They are taking on the powers of the animals
Is this like also like a warning story with the Wendigo of like, if you let greed consume you, like you're gonna turn into this and you're gonna be like this like horrible monster. Because I feel like that sounds like almost like one of those like scary stories to teach people a lesson
so that they can
or kids a
lie,
lesson.
cheat, and steal in order to advance their own standing. And you might ask, how could that possibly work? Nobody knows you're a skinwalker. You don't go around advertising this to people. It could be
True.
your uncle. It could be the guy down the street. It could be the guy who runs the tavern. It doesn't really matter. Anyone who undergoes the process can be a skinwalker, and they do it for reasons of self interest. Another possibility is that they've done this because they want revenge. For example, the story of
Ooh.
Skinwalker Ranch kind of involves this. The Ute
Oh my God, Skinwalker Ranch. I don't know. Like if you guys have watched it, let me know your thoughts on it. I have tried several times. One, I don't think I'm smart enough to understand some of the people they bring in there, and then they bring in like they have like seismographs and all this other like nerd stuff in there that I'm like, I I honestly don't know. I don't understand like what they're talking about. These graphs are confusing me. Like I don't know soil, composite type stuff. I it's like just tell me if you got like aliens underneath there or not or something. That is my gripe with Skinwalker and because I feel like every episode you watch, it's like 45 minutes of discussion, and then they do like one dig of a hole and they call it a day, and then they're like, oh my god, and then it's like an episode. It drives me crazy. So I think I watched like one season of Skinwalker Ranch, and I was like, this is gonna like I'm not smart enough to watch the and nothing happens. It's like Oak Island. It just makes me sad.
For example, the story of Skinwalker Ranch kind of involves this. The Ute were winning a war against the Navajo, and the Navajo, in order to prevent the Ute traveling any further or being able to use the conquered land, placed a curse on it that made it attractive to skinwalkers. And it's called the Path of the Skinwalker, and it runs through the Utah Valley. That's an example of it being a tribe wide kind of thing. In
Yeah.
certain cases, you might end up with somebody who maybe someone killed their family or cheated them in a deal, something like that, and they decide
I will say though, if you do watch anything on Skinwalker Ranch, you should just find the YouTube clips of people like telling crazy stories because that is, in my opinion, better than the show because the show just makes me feel like I don't know anything and I just wanna I just wanna know the spooky stuff.
decided they wanted to get revenge, so they become a skinwalker so that they can get the necessary powers and abilities to screw with that person and to eventually maybe kill them or just ruin their lives. Where the Wendigo is concerned, it's a lot.
I mean, I don't feel like that's very different than a lot of other things that people have done for revenge reasons, though. Because, I mean, you hear about all kinds of crazy sort of revenge tales, even. I mean, because some of them sound like they're unbelievable. So, I definitely can see where being a skinwalker could be to your advantage, and kind of fits in with your like tribe folklore and stuff like that. So, I can definitely see that.
And to eventually maybe kill them or just ruin their lives. Where the Wendigo is concerned, it's a lot more simplistic. The Wendigo kills and eats somebody out of desperation, is overcome with hunger for human flesh, and
Yeah.
that is the primary driver. It's not greed, it's not self-interest. These are creatures who go off into the woods alone. They're not interested in integrating themselves into society. They just want to eat people. And one story that
They're just people eating gremlins. Okay.
interested in integrating themselves into society. They just want to eat people. And one story that displays this really well comes from another Chippewa individual who described a story wherein a Wendigo kidnapped, and as the story goes, I'm quoting here, as the story goes, kidnapped a little Indian boy and took him off into the woods. But the Indian boy was too lean, and the Wendigo didn't want to eat him yet. So every day it would cut his hand with a knife, which displays tool use. So it shows that Wendigos aren't
Yeah.
entirely mindless. They do use tools. They are interested in this. So it cuts the little boy's hand to see if he's fat. And one day the boy is hungry, so he sends him off into a nearby village and says, "Go get some food, but don't tell them where that I brought you here. Don't tell them about me." And the boy goes, and the first thing he does is tell the people about the Wendigo.
Yeah, right,
And
right,
they
right.
feed the boy, and then they go off to hunt the Wendigo. And they catch it, and they cut off its legs and leave it to die.
Oh,
And then they come back a few days later to check and make sure it's dead. It's
it's
not.
gone.
It's sucking the bone marrow out of its dismembered legs and kind of laughing at them about the whole thing, so they kill it. There are other stories that involve
Yo, that is that is hardcore though. Can you imagine getting your legs cut off and then you're like, oh, well, since I am a cannibal, I'm just gonna eat myself. Kind of makes me think of that like robot chicken gummy bear clip.
and kind of laughing at them about the whole thing, so they kill it. There are other stories that involve a Wendigo terrorizing people near the Hudson Bay, and a great warrior goes up to the Hudson Bay and waits for the Wendigo, and he battles it and he beats it, and the Wendigo retreats, but then it comes back to fight him, and finally he kills it. So it's not necessarily uniform that you've got to do the whole cutting out the icy heart and burning it thing. There are other ways, it seems, to kill one, but they usually involve extreme violence and dismemberment. The Wendigo also,
Hmm.
as a result, has some variation. Wendigo might have been a term in certain contexts, not just for the monster, but also for just really bad people. Serial killers, for example, might be referred to as
Oh,
Wendigo because that was just kind of what made sense. But at the end of the
right. Oh, okay. So it could have a dual term, but the other definition that maybe they use it as like kind of makes sense. Like if you are a really bad person, it probably fits. Probably also causes some confusion between, real life and fiction.
day with the Wendigo, the real motivation here is selfishness. It's not just hunger.
Mm.
Because the Wendigo would rather harm others and live than save others and die. And speaking of dying, here's how you kill them. Skinwalkers, white ash is the key. Now, that's for the common man. A shaman, a medicine man, would have more tools at their disposal. They would have their magical powers. They would be able to battle the skinwalker on its own level. But for you and I, a little bit different. For us, the part that matters here is white ash from a fire. You coat a bullet in it, you coat a knife in it, and then you have to take off the head. That can be shooting through the head, that can be cutting off the head. I've seen some that suggest the heart will also work, but what is very, very important here is that you understand that unless you take out a vital organ like the brain or the heart, you're not going to kill it. It will be able to heal through whatever dark magic it possesses.
So we gotta hit it with the zombie headshot thing. Like you know, we gotta we gotta take it down. Got it.
You're not going to kill it. It will be able to heal through whatever dark magic it possesses. So, if you're going to kill one, make sure you do it that way, and for good measure, burn the body. With the Wendigo, there's a few more possibilities. Most involve cutting out and burning the heart. That will kill most things. Sometimes removing the heart is enough, sometimes the burning part is required. And as I just told you, there's stories where it's beaten to death, it's dismembered, whatever. So it seems like not all tribes agreed on the heart thing, but it's pretty clear to see that cutting something's heart out and burning it is always a solid way to kill something. And then
I feel like that, like take cutting out a heart and burning it is probably pretty solid. Taking heads. Like if anything that we've learned from movies, it's, and TV shows, you got to take the head. The head cannot be left attached.
of course, you can burn it. Really, with most things, if you want to destroy something, fire is always a good option.
Yeah.
But you know what else is fire? Our coffee, Mount Pocono Perk from Tableau Roasting Company in Kentucky. It's delicious. Everyone I give it to loves it. And you know what? You will too. It's good black. It's good over ice. It's good as a cold brew. I haven't really tried it in an espresso machine, but that would probably work as well. Believe it or not, espresso and coffee are different methods, not different beans.
I really enjoyed this video. This was very interesting, especially because like I honestly did not know the difference between the two. I really didn't. So, um as far as like the characteristics, I feel like I probably watch a lot of like stuff about them, but probably thought of them synonymously, which is definitely like not the correct way to do that. Now I have now learned that they are very, very different. But very interesting though. Very interesting. I enjoy both uh backstories. Also, let me know if you guys have watched Skinwalker Ranch and tell me your thoughts if you have. And if you haven't, I don't know if I suggest it or not. No. Um, I mean, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, you maybe you'll find it entertaining, interesting. But let me know your guys' thought on Skinwalker Ranch because I feel very torn on it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate you guys being here. So be sure to go and like and subscribe to the Lore Lodge. They do just awesome as I've been saying. great great history and folklore type of channel. So if you are into that, he is probably a good fit for you. But that's going to do it for me. I hope you guys had a great day and I will see you in the next one.